So why did translators ever use the word church?
That problem with the use of the word church started from things that happened almost 2,000 years ago. After Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection, Christians met in people's homes. As Christianity spread, rather than move into large buildings, they kept moving into other homes and businesses where they could kind of hide because Rome had made Christianity illegal. You could be killed for being a Christian. Then 200 years after Jesus' resurrection, the emperor of Rome changed and he said, oh, Christianity is no longer illegal. In fact, I'm going to encourage people to be Christians. I think it's the best idea. And so he would pour money into things that he saw as Christian efforts, and he would raise people to elevated positions in his empire who had Christian backgrounds or thought they had Christian backgrounds. And so all of a sudden it became very advantageous for all these pagans to jump on the bandwagon and be part of Christianity. But they'd grown up with these pagan traditions and they brought them with them. Even in the early days of Christianity, in Paul's letters and the other letters in the New Testament, you can see the authors fighting against traditions coming into Christianity that weren't Christian. And that's what was going on.
I assume this leads to these errors coming into the English New Testament.
Absolutely, Cody. That's a good question. The pagan traditions came into Christianity more and more. And when the leaders of Christianity wanted to create a Latin translation for use in Europe where Greek wasn't spoken, granted, most of the people in Europe couldn't speak Latin, but the leaders could. So they created this Latin translation, and in doing so, they held on to their pagan traditions so much that in some cases they changed words, they shaded the words, they do whatever they could to try to retain as much of their pagan traditions. And in paganism, your gods need temples. So obviously the Christian God needed these buildings, and your gods needed priests to tell the people what the gods wanted to tell them. So in this new religion, obviously we need priests to tell the people what God's talking about. And these pagan gods needed people to worship them and tell them how great they were, even though they weren't very great at all. In fact, they're not at all. But so Christianity had to tell God how wonderful he was. When God already knows how wonderful he is, he doesn't really want that. Not as an organized ritual. Anyhow, so those traditions came to be in the Latin translation, and by the time English translations were first made, the only New Testaments available were Latin New Testaments. So the English language translation brought those pagan traditions in, and once they got in, the Christian leaders didn't want to see them taken out. And then they became so strongly traditional that they just stayed in our English Bibles.
How does the 21st century New Testament handle the word church?
All right, in the 21st century New Testament, every case where the word church would normally have appeared, the word team is used because that's what the word really means. And team implies a job to do. And so that's the idea that God wants, that his teams would be busy doing the ministry work. This is an expansion of ministry. The more teams you have doing ministry, the more ministry gets done. And it changes the whole world when that happens. We've been talking about the 21st century New Testament, a New Testament that helps people who read it to see God's purpose in having teams that carry out ministry in this world and make the world a better place. I would encourage everyone to go to website ncm-21.com and learn more about this New Testament. You'll find articles there on the New Testament and on what the New Testament means for Christians. And you will find there the entire glossary, which is a good read in itself. You will find links to where you can purchase this new translation. I urge you to buy it, read it, experience it, and then once you're experiencing it, tell others what you've experienced.